Dasa and Brajarani. They have been more or less have become regular in this temple as well. They are from Krishna consciousness, strong Krishna devotees. So I won't say too much, but in any question you have, you can ask him, ask me, or ask Panditji. In the minister in this Hindu temple is called Pandit Ji. Ji is like a sir, it's a sign of respect. So anybody, if you want respect, we have this Ji. So Pandit Ji. So with that, I'll give it to you. We'll give it to Terry. Sorry.
Let's see, if I've been called Terry G in the past, I think so. No, when I was in India, when we traveled with the James. My name is Terry Helton, and I'm the president of the Ventura County Interfaith Community, and we have been in existence since about 2005. And there are people in this room that have joined us that have been with us from that beginning, besides my husband, Tim Helton, and Rabbi Michael Lodker is here. He was part of the original group. And now we've grown somewhat, and I'm going to actually, I don't usually do this, but because it's such a growing, interesting place to have this event, maybe you'll know who's here to support you and us in this. So, Arash, could you raise your hand, stand up? He is Baha'i. And Reverend Larry Brown is an Episcopal priest. Bobby Grantham is from the Church of Scientology. Becky is from Padre Sarah Catholic Church. And I know there's another person from the Catholic Church back here. We have our Latter-day Saints are with us, Peggy and Carrie, stand up. And I may have missed some people, but just an idea. Tim and I happen to be Episcopalian, and so it is an amazing pleasure to be here tonight to do this. I mentioned him first, probably. Sorry. So he was with us the first night we met in our home to start this group, and it's an honor to have him here. So if I missed anybody, it's my apology, but it's a beautiful sea of faces out there, and this is a dream to be standing here in the Hindu temple to do this tonight. So I want to say that tonight we're going to have Mayesvara and Brajarani Robert speak about Hinduism, and I think they're going to add a little bit about the Jains. And it's an honor to have them. We normally, it's up to the speaker what they do, but we are asking you to hold your questions until he is through speaking. And then we will have a question and answer time. So if you don't think you're going to be able to hold on to that question, please, I will come around and give you a piece of paper so you can jot it down. Also, before we leave, we would really like an evaluation. I will have a piece of paper with an evaluation that we would like to pick up because it helps us know how we do things well and how we can do things better. And if you want to have more information on what we are doing, we do something usually monthly. You can check vcic.info. That's vcic.info. And we will be having an event on the third Tuesday of February, and that is yet to be fully established. We have an opportunity to possibly have some speakers from Israel, a Muslim, Christian, actually Orthodox, not Roman Orthodox, or Greek Orthodox, and a Jewish person who will have a conversation. So we're hoping to have that opportunity, and it's a very short window. If we don't do that, we will be talking about what we do with our finances in our different faiths. So be looking for that information. That's vcic.info. And I'm through advertising. We do want to tell you, again, please fill out the evaluation, and I want to give all the time I can to Mayesvara and to Brajarani. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much as well, Barry Hilton, the President of Ventura County Interfaith, to give us this opportunity. And also want to thank very much Mahesh Talwar, the President of the Hindu Temple here, and Panditji for giving us the opportunity to use these facilities here. So thank you very much. And we also have actually from friends from the Seventh-day Adventist Church here. Barry and Carolyn, do you want to just stand up like that? Let's give them a big round of applause as well. And that's Tom here also from the Seventh-day Adventist Church. They're good friends of ours, and very happy to see all of them here, especially Gary and everyone, and all of you. Okay, so we're going to begin with our. I just wanted to begin with offering our respects to all the deities here. Jai Shri Shri Radhe Shyam, Jai Shri Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman, Shri Shri Lakshmi Narayan, Shri Balaji, Shri Shivji, Shri Durga Ji, Shri Ganesh Ji, and Shri Hanuman Ji. So, and our obeisances to all our line of spiritual teachers. Srila Prabhupada is our founder of our movement. Thank you very much, everyone, for making the effort to come here today. I'm really happy to see you. Okay, so we're going to begin with this slide. So, can everyone see this from the back? Yeah? You okay? Okay, good, very good. So, Sanatan Dharma, we're all used to the word Hinduism. But actually, this word Hinduism is nowhere in our Vedic literatures. You'll never find the word Hinduism in there. Hinduism actually came from, there was a river called River Sindhu, and the Persians couldn't pronounce Sindhu, so they said everyone who lived across the river Sindhu were the Hindus. So they pronounced Sindhu as Hindu, and said, so that's how the word Hinduism became. But our real term for what we call for people who follow the Vedic tradition is Sanatan Dharma, which means the eternal religion, which is applicable to everyone. It's a science of self-realization. It's something like you can't change. It's a universal spiritual truth. For example, if we jump from a building, we face the law of gravity. It doesn't matter whether you're Hindu, Muslim, Christian, black, white, young or old, we all face the law of gravity. So our religion is basically teaching us principles that are applicable to every living entity. So it's called Sanatan Dharma. Sanatan means eternal religion, it's applicable to everyone. Lily? Just a moment.
We're having a technical breakdown. I'm not sure what happened.
Sorry about this.
Everything worked until Krishna. No, Brajarani is connected with the light circuit, so it's on.
It's going to come back?
Technical problem solved.
Somebody.
Jai Shri Krishna.
Sorry.
So just to tell a little bit, Sanatan Dharma means an eternal occupational duty of people. What's natural for us, like you said, what's natural for water is liquid. What's natural for sugar, what's the original constitution of sugar? It's sweet.
Sweet.
Right? Sugar is sweet. So water is liquid. Right? Fire is
Hot.
hot. Right, very good, Karen. So and so in the same way we say for humans, our natural constitutional position is to serve. We are naturally, we have that natural thing in us to serve. We either serve our dog, we serve our family, we serve our nation, we serve, the world. The highest thing we say we can serve is God. He's our original creator. So service to God is our natural constitutional position. Okay, well, we got the next slide up. So what is the difference between idol worship and deity worship? Now, all of you walking here, especially from different backgrounds, it's shocking sometimes, to see things like that. I remember a friend Tom saying when I walk in here, this is like some people consider idol worship. But we say there is a big difference between idol worship and deity worship. Because actually we don't believe in idol worship either. idol worship is something that we idolize, and we make up. But deity worship, like what's the difference between a dollar note and a piece of paper? Are they both the same? What are they made of? Paper, right? Both paper. So I'll ask you, Anu, can you, if I gave you a piece of paper exactly the size of $100 note, and I asked you to give me $100 note in return, will you do that? She's smart. But it's just paper. What's the difference? Right? It's just paper. What's the difference?
The value, daily.
The value. What gives it the value?
The writing on it, the writing on it,
The what?
the writing on it, and it's proprietary.
It's authorized by?
The government, the treasury.
Authorized by some higher authority. So like that, we say these deities are authorized form by, in our Vedic teachings. They're not, you can't just idolize or make up something and start worshipping it. You have to follow the exact rules in our scriptures. So it's not just made up. Do you want to say a little bit about it?
So what we've done here is we put together a PowerPoint slideshow to try to help really understand what the real difference is. So we've got a picture of the Statue of Liberty. Everybody's familiar with it. She represents America. She represents the freedom we serve. And it's actually from after the Revolutionary War. People gave it to us.
Right.
So the question is this an idol? I don't know. Here's another one. Very famous person we're all familiar with. We all know who he is. He's the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. And he's very important to us because he actually helped hold this country together. So again, is this an idol? Let's see. Many people go to the Lincoln Memorial to recognize him and to honor him. And he reminds us of something that's very important, which is the foundation of our country and the continuation of our country. So here's another one, Mount Rushmore. A lot of people go there. We have this carving in the hills, and it's representing 4 famous people who are all, again, very, very important to founding our country. So we ask the question again. No one thinks of this as idol worship because these great men have earned our respect, and it is appropriate for us to give them respect. So here's another one. Now, I don't know about you, but when I first saw the statue of David by Michelangelo, I was fascinated. I was a much younger person at the time. How is it possible that somebody could take a huge block of marble and carve this so perfectly? It's considered to be a great work of art. And it is. In the same situation, of course, most people here know that David was a very important person in the biblical tradition. And so Michelangelo is actually contracted to make the statue. And so again, is this an idol? Let's see. So here, Brajarani, you want to read the Sanskrit?
This is some verses in what we say the first created being in our tradition, in the Vedic literatures. And he came out to the world. He was born of the lotus of the navel of the Supreme Lord. His name is Brahmaji, and he was like, what am I doing here? Who am I? What's this world? Where am I? He's asking those questions. And then he heard a sound from the Lord to perform some austerities and prayers, and the answers will be revealed to him. So when the answers were revealed to him, this is what he came up with, and he was revealed, and so he made a poetry. He sang a song about that, and it goes like that. Venam Karmantamara Vindaralayataksham Parhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam Kandarpakotikamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindamari Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. In English,
So what he's saying is, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept at playing his flute. Now, before I go any further, pay particular attention to the words in red, because what he's describing is what he understood was to be the image or the personality of Godhead. We'll tie this in together a little bit. So So he's giving us, right now, he's giving us some clues. He's saying he's playing his flute with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock feather, and a figure beautifully tinged with the hue of blue clouds. He is unique loveliness, charming millions of gopis.
Alavala Chandra Kavala Sadvanamaya Vamsi Ragnangadam Pranaya Keli Kala Vilasham Shamam Tribangalalitam Niyata Prakasham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
So just in case there's a little confusion here, Govinda is another name for Krishna, and we're going to get to that, hopefully, if we get to it later tonight. God has millions of names, so this is one that's a very endearing name. Lord Brahma is referring to him as Govinda, the primeval Lord, meaning the original, only single personality that brought the whole universe into existence. Round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers beautified with the moon locket, and whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful, threefold bending form of Shyam Sundar is eternally manifest.
Angani yasya sakalendriya dritimanti Pashyanti panti kalayanti chiranjaganti Ananda chinmaya sadujala vigrahasya Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami.
So he continues our worship of Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Listen to this carefully, this is fascinating. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged function of all the other organs. That means he can see with his ears, he can smell with his tongue, he can hear with his eyes. His senses are interchangeable. And eternally sees and maintains and manifests the infinite universe, both spiritual and mundane. So here we have some gentlemen in the city of Jaipur. That's one particular place. It's pretty much right smack in the middle of India, where they carve deities, and we have in front of us quite a variety of deities. And these deities, if you wish to come up later and take a close look at them, you'll see they're beautifully made. And what we're seeing here is a picture of some gentlemen who are carefully carving this deity from a block of marble, just like David did. Okay? And in fact, what we see here is a finished deity of Krishna according to the way Lord Brahma described him. And how did he describe him? Playing his flute with many jeweled ornaments, a peacock feather on his head, his eyes blooming lotus petals, wearing flower garlands in his neck, posing in a threefold bending form. Okay? So they're not making this up. Lord Brahma is the first progenitor in the entire universe, and Lord Brahma had an opportunity to realize who the Supreme Lord was. And so here, I'm just going to give it's only a minute long. I just wanted to kind of diversify a little bit of this presentation tonight. I find it really fascinating. I don't know how many people have actually had an opportunity to see somebody carve a block of marble. But this is actually a video of the people we were just talking about. And you can see how painstaking it is to take this marble and turn it into a deity like the one we've seen in front of you here. And keep in mind, when it's done, you can see these deities are polished, smooth as glass. So this is what it takes to make these deities, and obviously there's many Hindu temples all over the world, and so they're making lots and lots of deities. But the most important point here is to remember that these deities are carved the way they're described in the Vedas, just like that dollar bill, because it's made and authorized and confirmed by the United States, it has value. Whereas the piece of paper that they weren't willing to trade for that is not. And that's the important point to understand. Deities are not just any whimsical thing that you want to put on your altar or put on your throne or whatever you want to do. So here's an example of many different deities that are actually carved. And you can go to the city of Jaipur, and you can, if you wanted to, and that's, I'm pretty sure probably these deities came from Jaipur. I would assume,
Yes,
yeah,
they did.
Just confirming that. This is most of where they come from. So here's our Statue of Liberty again. And I just want to bring you back to this for a minute, because again, we erect all sorts of monuments to people and things that are important to us. And it's kind of nice to see, Statue of Liberty represents something, and it means something to us. It's not just some idol, it actually has a meaning, and it reminds us of something very important. But here's a little humbling. Some of them are extremely large. Extremely large. Like, look at this. I don't know how many people are aware of this, but just recently, within the last 4 or 5 years, I don't know the exact same date, but in Gujarat, I believe it is, they've erected a monument to this gentleman way over on the left. Is one of the big personalities that helped bring India together after they pushed the British out. And most people think of Gandhi and Nehru. I didn't even realize this until I researched this. Apparently this gentleman is kind of like the brains behind the whole operation. So he's highly respected. And the people of India want to honor him with this huge monument. And this is the scale. Just look at the size, twice the size, 3 times the size of the Statue of Liberty. So, again, why do we make these things? And this is a picture of many, what we would refer to as deities or statues, some people would say, of many of the different great personalities in the Christian tradition, which the Catholics make a lot of images like this. And why not? All of the people that they're making these images of are people who did great things to help us and remind us and to guide us and inspire us to become the best that we can possibly become. Why not have that? So if we're down and out, when we see that, oh yeah, we get inspiration from it, right?
And it reminds us of those good qualities that people have, and we develop those things. So the highest is God. You say if you have a deity of God, something that reminds us of God, then we'll think about God, and we become God-like. So that's a very good thing for us.
And everybody's got a picture in their wallet of somebody they love and care about. Is that an idol? I don't think so. Because that person is somebody that means a lot to us. And when we see that photo, it reminds us, oh yes, I'll make it through the day because I'm going to go home at the end of the day and my wife will be there and we'll have a wonderful evening again. So this is the concept that we're trying to get across to people. And the question then becomes, well, where does your faith lie? And I think most of us are aware of the fact, the way the world's going right now, a lot of people, and it's sort of almost subtle and unconscious, how many people are expecting science to bail us out, right? Well, don't worry, we'll figure it out. We don't know the answer now, but we'll figure it out in 10 years from now. We call that a post-dated check. Because I don't have the money in the bank, but I'll give you the check, and hopefully I'll have money in the bank when you want to cash it. That's what this is all about. So here the point is, have to be very careful, because actually, we're not saying there isn't anything called idol worship. There is. And I think most people in the room here have some foundation and some sort of a reasonable theology, and we all have that knowledge of what idol worship really is. And this will help remind you in case you forgot. Which one of these different pastimes are you chasing, or maybe getting distracted by, or maybe spending too much time with? Okay, and I put a quote here from the Bible. I think most people, at least the Christian tradition, I'm sure you're familiar with it. Where your heart is, that's where your treasure is where your heart will be. And what's really interesting is, we're going to introduce a few verses from the Bhagavad Gita, which is, here we go. This is the Bhagavad Gita. By the way, Vedic tradition, the Vedic literature, there's thousands and thousands of scriptures. I've been told that if they were to print them all, it would fill an entire library. So we can't read a whole library of scriptures from ancient India. So Krishna's very kind. What he did is he boiled it down to one book, and it's only 700 verses. You can think of this as the equivalent of the Hindu Bible. 700 verses, and this is one of the verses in the Bible. And they're all very, very easy to follow. And this is the same thing that was on the previous slide. As a boat in the water is swept away by a strong wind, even one of your senses can carry away your intelligence and next thing you know, you're in a slot machine in Las Vegas, and you're wagering your whole house away. And people who know the problem of addiction of gambling know that that can be a real serious problem, because you've lost control of your senses. And here's another one. This is wonderful. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them. And from such attachment, lust develops. And from lust, anger arises. From anger, complete delusion arises. And from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down into you're back in the mess of the material world, and you've lost all control. So we like to say, who's in charge? You or your senses? You have to control your senses. That's the way of the yogi. So here's another beautiful sculpture. How many people would say this is idol worship? This happens to be a place in Rome. 5 million people every year come to see the Pieta. Why? Because it's a carving of an extraordinary event of a man who gave his life so that we can learn that there's more to life than just wasting our time doing all the things that people get sidetracked by. So we would say this is actually a deity. And if the Hindus were in charge, it would have flowers all over it. Okay? Because that's how you honor it. You think of it, it reminds you, oh, this person has done so much for me. So here we have examples of deities. It reminds us of what the spiritual world is like. And it helps prepare us to learn how to behave when we get there. I mean, has anybody really stopped to think about it? What are you going to do when God's standing right in front of you? If you haven't had any practice. You have to kind of, it's a whole different situation, okay? So, and here, whoops, a little bit off the screen, it looks like. I'll read it to you. So this is the last slide in this preparation. So this is a typical, we have it here, Radha Krishna. Krishna's playing his flute. Remember Lord Brahma said he plays his flute. He has a peacock feather. They have a peacock feather. He has a threefold bending form. These things are, these deities are carved according to the way Krishna's described, which is really wonderful when you think about it. And that's what attracts me to the Vedic tradition, because there's so much information, it overwhelms you actually. So the last thing here is Krishna's saying this again, another verse in the Bhagavad Gita. All of them, as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. God's very, very happy. He's always happy. He's never depressed. But he's particularly happy when we have a relationship with him. And he will reward us, or he will exchange with us to whatever degree we reach out to want to exchange with him. Otherwise, okay, fine, have at it.
So in our tradition, we believe that all religions are different paths leading to the one God. There's only one God. There's no two gods, right? But God is very, what would you say? He's very, he's facilitating everyone according to where we are at in our journey. So if someone's just like me when I teach. When I'm teaching a primary school kid, I have to speak that level. When I'm teaching a secondary school and that college, then I have to speak different. So just like that, God's very kind. He doesn't have to be said. It's just not, one way and one type. If you don't do it, you're in hell forever. He says no. He says, according to where you're ready with stepping stones. He comes at different times in different forms. He says as Jesus Christ or Prophet Muhammad or whoever like that, to give us to what the group of people at that time was ready for. So and when you all walked in here, you probably realized we were chanting certain what we call mantras. That's a very important type of worship that we do in the Hindu temples. The word man means mind, tra means to free. So it frees your mind of any troubles, anxieties. It purifies our heart and purifies our soul. Mantra is what we call a transcendental sound vibration. Vibration is really important, as sound vibration has a very powerful impact on us. So what kind of sound we surround ourselves with, that will impact our mind, body, and soul. So we like to surround ourselves with chanting God's names. And the Maha Mantra is a king of all the mantras. This is what we usually chant. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And you can sing that with all different melodies. Next slide. Okay, so here it says Lord Krishna's name and the Hare Krishna mantra. Unlike the conditioned soul, there is no distinction between Krishna's name and his person. Krishna is just another name of God. It means the all-attractive person. It's a very personal name. We say you can call him Allah, Jehovah, whatever you want. For us, or according to the scriptures, for us, Krishna means the all-attractive person. And there's no difference, like my husband said earlier. He's got a spiritual body. With his eyes, he can taste. When we offer him food stuff, he tastes with his eyes. With his ears, he can see. He can do anything with, because he's God. So in the same way, his name, the Lord's holy name, his form, his personality are all one and the same. There is no difference between them. They are all transcendental. Since all of them are absolute, they are transcendentally blissful. There is no difference between Krishna's body and himself, between his name and himself. The holy name of Krishna and his transcendental qualities and pastimes, as well as Lord Krishna himself, are all equal and have the same potency. They are all spiritual and they are full of bliss. So when one chants the Hare Krishna mantra, they are praying to the Supreme Lord with one simple request. O Lord, please be so kind to grant this fallen soul the most extraordinary privilege to always engage me in your devotional service without any tinge of personal motive other than to please you. So we focus on just asking God to develop love for him and to serve him. We don't focus so much to ask him, give me a car, give me a house, give me a good wife, give me this, give me. Right? We don't want to have a business transaction with God. If you give me this, I'll worship you, or I worship you, you give me this and you give me that. No, all I want is to love you. And the rest you will take care of, we will trust. Just like a child. You know, when he's just being nice to the parents, he'll trust the parents will take care of him. So like that, we focus our worship on this. So the word karma.
Okay, I'll take it up here. So we just want to click through a few terms that's becoming more popular in the American language and English language. And I'm sure most people have some sense of what the word karma means. And we see here on the screen, this is the Merriam-Webster definition. It's a little chunky. The force generated by a person's actions held in Hinduism and Buddhism to perpetuate transmigration. Transmigration means reincarnation to the next body. And in its ethical consequences to determine the nature of the person's next existence. So I think most people have had some sense of that. In the Bible, it's also there. It says, as you sow, so shall you reap. And I think people who are familiar with the Bible know that it's actually in the Bible quite a few places. I just listed 3 of them here. And then also, it's interesting, the physicist, Newton, said, well, for every action, there's a reaction. So we're getting this concept of karma reinforced in quite a different variety of sources. And then in psychology, there's a concept called the law of reciprocation. If you treat somebody nicely, more likely than not, they'll treat you nicely. And if you treat somebody really bad, then you better run away because you're not going to get a good response. Okay? So there's something to this, good karma. Now here's the trick though, here's the thing to keep in mind. Good karma is not necessarily the goal, which is something that I used to think when I first heard the definition of karma. And here's another verse from the Bhagavad Gita. When one dies in the mode of goodness, he attains the pure planets of the great sages. Well, it sounds kind of cool, actually. So here's the concept of reincarnation. Consciousness determines your future. I don't know how many times I've met people. I live in Ojai, and Ojai is kind of a very creative and spiritual town with all sorts of stuff over there. And when you ask people, well, how does karma work? And how does reincarnation work? Everybody has their theory. Well, the Bhagavad Gita makes it very clear how it works, and it makes a lot of sense. Whatever state of being one remembers, when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. So it kind of makes sense. If you spend your whole life down at the races and wasting, doing all sorts of silly things, well, okay, then you're going to get whatever that is. But if you actually spend, we have a lot of ministers and priests and rabbis here, if you spend your whole life trying to restore your relationship with God, then you're going to probably elevate your consciousness, and that's really what the whole purpose of life is. So reincarnation explains what would otherwise be very unfair. And I've asked many people this question. If you take away reincarnation, how do you explain the fact that people like Paris Hilton are born into an extremely wealthy family, and she's a very attractive young lady, and then other people are born in situations where they're one of these horrible third world countries where they're barely able to find anything to eat, might be fearful of bombs dropping on their head every day. How do you explain that? They're both, if you take away karma and they're both expected to get to the same destination, then why aren't they starting from the same starting point? If you have reincarnation, it solves that problem. And here's another verse from the Bhagavad Gita. And this is meant to be encouraging. It says, the unsuccessful yogi, after many years of enjoyment on pious planets and living entities, is born into a family of righteous people and of rich aristocracy, which means if you have good karma, you'll go to the higher planets and you'll play out that good karma, but then you'll come back to this planet and then you'll have an opportunity again. The point is you have to get rid of the good karma too. You have to come to the point where there's no karma. Because good karma will get you good results. And the material world is not a very pleasant place to be. And that I think we're going to get into that in a minute. Okay, here's another slide. This one's a little more detailed. Everybody asks these questions. Why am I here? Who's God? Is there a purpose in life? So bear with me here. I hope you can at least see some of this. It's basically 4 steps. So the great sages said, well, if we want answers to these questions, we have to, first of all, kind of take an inventory of what we're working with. So I'll read it to you. The first, number 1 here, it says, well, we have working senses, voice, legs, hands, anus, genitals. We have subtle senses, intelligence, false ego, inner sense, the mind. We have great elements called the earth, water, fire, air, and ether. We have knowledge acquiring senses, eyes, ears, nose, tongues. And we have the jiva, which is the unique eternal soul. That's what we got to work with to figure out the answers to these questions. These sages were really brilliant. They spent a lot of time thinking about this stuff. So then they realized, well, wait a minute, but we have 4 flaws. So we see on the screen here, we see a pair of glasses. That means your senses are not necessarily so good. There could be radon in this room right now. You won't even know it, but it will kill you. Then we have another example of the man who's got the horse on the wrong side. That's called making mistakes. We have another example of the kid looking over his shoulder. That's cheating. These are the 4 flaws we're all actually handicapped by. And the last one is, how many feet are on that elephant? You get fooled by illusions. So if you're honest enough and you recognize this, you kind of have to go, I hate to say this to a lot of people in Ojai. You can sit on the hill and meditate your entire life away and you still won't understand anything because of this problem. The only way you're actually going to get out of this vicious loop is to realize if you want to get out of it, you have to get it from something outside and beyond yourself, which is what religion is really all about. People surrender to Jesus because they know, I can't figure it out on my own. I need help. They go to the temple. They come here. They go to the synagogue because they realize, I need help. You can't do it on your own. So, if you go to number 3, you have to face your dilemma. And either you have really 2 choices. Either you come with some way of fooling yourself, well, I'm going to figure it out anyway, in which way you go back up to the top, and then you go down some other avenue, and who knows how many years and lives you're going to waste doing that. Or, usually, you go down the other way, and you realize there's really only 2 ways, and we would say only 1 way, to solve this dilemma of how will you actually understand anything properly. And remember the previous slide, the guy bowing down to science? A lot of people think science is going to provide that answer. Personally, I don't think so. Because why? The scientists have these same 4 problems. They try to cross-check each other, but this problem is they're still there. So the alternative is you take up some form of legitimate religion or theism, and that will start, at least you move you along on the path, on the proper path. Okay, let's see what we got here next. Okay, real quickly here. This is important. You're not the body. You could be male, female, American, Westerner,
For that, you have to turn off airplane mode.
Whoa. I didn't know I had airplane mode on. Boy, that sounds like a voice from God. Whoa. Can you explain where that came from? I don't know where that came from. All right. We'll just sort of pretend that we didn't hear that. So the thing is, you're not any of those things. Whether you think you're American or Indian or Westerner or German or whatever country, or whether you're a woman or man or black or white or whatever, those are all material designations. They're not who you are. You are, and there's another verse in the Bible, material nature consists of 3 modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance. When the eternal living entity comes in contact with nature, he becomes conditioned by these modes. Conditioning is what binds us back into this world. So, and you're not your religion. Because remember earlier, Brajarani was saying, religion is something you can change. Today you can be a Hindu, tomorrow you can be a Catholic, next day you become a Buddhist, and when you get tired of all that, you become an atheist. So you're not your religion either. But what you are is an eternal spirit being, spiritual being. And here's a good example, or here's a good way to see it. As the embodied soul continually changes from one body to the next, to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person doesn't let this bother them. The question is, where are you going to go next time around? And that's why you want to be very attentive to what you're doing here and now. God is eternal, and so are you. You're an eternal person. Krishna's explaining to Arjuna and the Bhagavad Gita, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor in the future shall any of you cease to be. And here's another one. For the soul there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being. He does not come into being. He will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primeval. He is not slain when the body is slain. It's going to go somewhere. So here we're backing up. We're trying to integrate with some of the biblical tradition too. Most Christians are familiar with this. Don't invest your time on earth, your treasures on earth, where moth and vermin destroy, where thieves break in. But store them for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and thieves do not break in. So we have a very similar verse in the Bhagavad Gita. Those who are seers of the truth have concluded of the non-existent, which is the body, there is no endurance. And of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded after studying the nature of both. I put this in here because I guess it's one of my pet peeves. You know, I hear all these stories about people having satsang. Satsanga means to sit with the truth. And the real formal definition in Hinduism, or the Vedic culture, or Sanskrit, I should say, is the truth is determined by the Vedas. Remember, you can't figure it out on your own. So this is a word that's misused a lot. It has become popular by some people to refer to their gatherings as satsang. Those programs may have elements of truth and can sometimes cover aspects of human psychology, but they do not present a clear understanding of the Vedic science of the soul. Therefore, those gatherings do not meet the privilege of being referred to as a satsang. Okay? And here's another verse in the Bhagavad Gita. Any sacrifice performed without regard for the direction of the scriptures, without distribution of sanctified foods, without chanting the Vedic mantras and hymns, and without remuneration to the priest, and without faith is considered to be in the mode of ignorance. And by the way, we are going to have some wonderful sanctified foods probably in about 20 minutes from now. So stick around. You won't go home hungry. Here's another one, Dharma. A lot of people want to know what Dharma. You hear the word Dharma gets thrown around. We all have different natures. Some have scholarly tendencies, Brahmins. Others have naturally protective of the innocent, Kshatriyas. Others are naturally entrepreneurs, good at business. Okay? And while still others are very talented in physical strength. Those are the sutras. The essence is something is what is referred to as dharma. Brajarani talked about this earlier. The essence of water is it's wet. The essence of sugar is that it's sweet. The essence of the human being is he has to serve something. So make careful choices to who's you're serving. And then it says here, according to the three modes of material nature and the word described in them, the four divisions of human society, which I just referred to, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, are created by Krishna. They're in every culture. You go to the Aborigines in Australia, they have people who are the heads of the culture, they have the warrior class, they have the mercantile class, and then the labor class. It's there in every culture. So you can't really avoid it. And here, I just put this up, because we have a bunch of charts illustrating all this stuff. I just wanted to point out here, so here's how you can think of it. The Brahmins are the head of society. The Kshatriyas are the arms, come too close and you get banged. The Vaishyas are the stomach, which nourishes the rest of the body, and the Sudras are the legs. And the rest of it's all the details, which we're not going to go into, because we're trying to move fast. Here we go. So here's, Brajarani, you want to read these? Okay, so I put this in here because I know when I was a child, it's like, what the heck's going on in here? Why do they have cows wandering around all over the place? It really is hard to really understand what's going on. Well, here's what's going on. Why is a cow considered so sacred? She eats grass and small vegetation that grows everywhere, in many cases is a nuisance. The baby calf weighs about 75 pounds, but the mother produces 125 pounds of milk. What do you do with that extra milk? I'm sorry, vegans, you don't have it right. She gives the milk to her calf, she can drink there's more milk than the cow can possibly drink. Why? Because that's left for us. This is God's magic way of making things work. Chemistry has proven that cow dung and urine have antiseptic qualities. And I won't go into that, but trust me, it's there. Cow dung is the best fertilizer. I think people know that. If you go down to Green Thumb, they'll sell you a bag of cow dung. Put it in your garden. Okay, and it also, when it's dry, you can use it as fuel. And many people in India actually do that. More the village people. The bull has extraordinary strength for plowing the land and drawing water. After drying naturally, a cow's leather and flesh is considered exceptional. I don't think I have to go through that. I think people know that. Cows are very affectionate and are treated like family members in India. We have dogs, they have cows. And the cow is one of the 7 mothers we're duty bound to respect.
Yeah, it's because like all the things we get from a cow, we say that, when we slaughter a cow, we say it's like taking milk from your mother and slaughtering your mother, all the things. So she's considered like a cow because we drink her milk. And the 7 mothers in the Vedic literature is the natural birth mother, the wife of one's personal teacher, one's nursing mother, wife or honorable spiritual leader, wife of the honorable spiritual leader, wife of the king, and the mother cow and mother earth.
And we're going to end this particular set of slides, and here, what's not to love? And we're going to clip along here. We have one more little PowerPoint slideshow. I'm trying to keep it all within the time we've been given. So give me 1 second here to move up to, okay, we're not going to go into that. There's about 10 more plates in this, but I knew we wouldn't have time to do it, so I just sort of said, set it aside. Okay, so let's go here to the next. Okay, here we go. This is a temple in Mount Abu. If you actually start looking into Hindu temples, you'll be fascinated. There's so many interesting things in India. Even the scientists can't figure out how they did it. I mean, they carved temples out of granite, which is the hardest thing we know. Well, wait a minute, how do you carve granite into very fine little, I'm talking like little deities, little sculptures. What do you do it with? It just dulls your chisels. How do they do it? There's some really interesting stuff. So, we're getting to that. By the way, this, okay, hold on. This is, so just so you know, this particular presentation, again, because many people think the Hindus worship many gods. That's what this PowerPoint slideshow is all about, many gods. So this is what the inside of this Mount Abu temple looks like. This is all carved. It's extraordinary. And again, we're just going to show you a quick little 1-minute video tour of what's going on. And the question that we want to ask, the natural question that comes up is, I'm not going to spend that much time looking at this. Doesn't matter. Do Hindus worship any gods? I mean, you just saw a temple that had lots of little figures all over the place. So that's a very reasonable question. It certainly seems like that based on Hindu temple arguments. Some of this stuff is it's just incomprehensible. I mean, this is just one little shot of one temple. And I haven't been there, but it looks like that's wood, which is, if it's wood, it's holding it pretty good if it's outside. And here it is again. But the surprising answer is no. The most sacred book of all the Hindus is the Bhagavad Gita, which I've gave some quotes from. And it's spoken by Lord Krishna, and there he unequivocally states, Mata parakanam nanya kinchidasti dharanjaya Mayesvara proktam sutre mani ganaiva, which means, O conqueror of wealth, Arjuna, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. You pull this thread out, chaos. You take God out of society, chaos. Okay, we got 5 minutes. I think I can do it. So here we go. This is another verse from we will read the Sanskrit, from the Brahma Samhita, where he says, the light of one candle being communicated to other candles, although burned separately, is the same in the quality. And then he says, I adore Govinda, the primeval Lord. And here we go. So here's an example of how Krishna is expanding himself into 3 expansions. As Brahma, which in the Vedic tradition is Brahma creates the universe. Vishnu basically keeps it going. He's like the janitor. He keeps cleaning things up and fixes it and fixing it. And then Lord Shiva comes to take it away when it's time to take it away. Doesn't mean it goes away permanently, it just means it starts a new cycle. So, if you think that's weird, well, no, it's not weird at all. It's basically very similar to the Christian Trinity. God is manifesting himself in a variety of ways. So, the appearance of Lord Christ gives us deep satisfaction on many levels. His pastimes give us inspiration and hope. Stories about these divine personalities give us inspiration and give us hope and give us something to move forward to and improve ourselves with. So, let's see where we're going to go here. So here it is. So Krishna's saying, whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious principles, at that time I will ascend myself in order to reestablish the principles of religion. So we see in different places around the world. You know, we have the Christian tradition, but before that we had the Zoroastrian tradition, and then later we had the Islamic tradition. So it's not like anyone is any more superior than anybody else. It's just that he's coming and teaching the people where they are at that particular time and place with what they'll be able to understand. So, are there many gods? Well, no. Actually, there's one, Krishna, and here's an example of how he's expanded himself. And the Hindus are very familiar with this. And they recognize that he's appearing in many different times and places to inspire us, and usually to solve a particular, kind of dilemma or something that's going on in the universe. Okay? And like I said, Hindus respect all these people. All these. This is why it gets confusing, because they sometimes refer to them as gods. But Krishna's saying, no, they're demigods. They're all working through me. They're all working through my energy. I'm expanding myself into all of these different great personalities. Okay? So then this is another temple in India. It's an extraordinary temple, but actually it's a whole complex of temples. When I saw these photos, I said, holy smoke, wow, it's like, it's really incredible. When you go to these places, these are in South India. So who are all these personalities that they're carving? This is in Madurai, South India. So demigods serve the Supreme Lord just like angels do in the biblical tradition, okay?
In the Vedic portfolio, demigods are like those administrators of the various functions of the universe, like the oceans, Varuni, the rain, Indra, or the sun, Surya. And so, hopefully here, those exposed to the extraordinary lessons taught in the Vedas often get confused when they hear about the godly personalities such as Indra, Surya, Varuni, Durga, Ganga, and Agni-Dev. They are powerfully accomplished individuals known as demigods. So here's, keeping all the functions of the world working is a big job, okay? God's got better things to do than make sure it rains in California when we have a drought. Okay, I think we're going to come in under time here. And here's the kind of things God's doing. He's enjoying his wonderful exchanges with his beloved devotees in the spiritual world. He doesn't build the office, he lets somebody else do it. By the way, Krishna is God's personal name. Vishnu, I like to tell people, Vishnu is God when he's at the office working. That's his job name. That's when he works his job. Here's another picture. So, there's only one sun. There's only one sun. It's not an American sun. It's not an Arabic sun. It's not an Asian sun. We may call it many names, sun, sol, Surya, and so forth. But there's only one sun that shines down on all of us equally. There's only one sun. Similarly, God has unlimited names. And here are some of them, which are common in the Christian tradition. I gotta move fast. Here's some in the Islamic tradition. It's a working night, I want to get you home early. Okay, this is so here, they also have lots and lots of names for God. It always gets me when people say, no, you can't call God that. Why not? God doesn't care what name you call him. Here's the Vishnu Sahasranam. This is the Vedic tradition. They have also a whole list of names for God. Here's some of them. You can't read them all. But trust me, this is a short list. And most Hindus have some familiarity with a lot of these names. And there again in Bhagavad Gita, he says, I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I'm equal to all. God doesn't play discrimination. We do, but he doesn't. God is more anxious for us to restore a relationship with him than we are. He's not particular about what name we use when we pray. He's just very pleased when we call out to him. Doesn't matter what name you use. Just like if somebody's calling, your child's calling you daddy, daddy, or papa, papa, you're just charmed that he's calling you. You don't really particularly care what name he uses. So here's the last slide. I think I did it. And so, in our tradition, Krishna is sitting there waiting. He's waiting to greet us in the spiritual world. So, I think what we're going to do now, if I'm correct, do we have, I think we've fallen apart in the kitchen division. Did we heat up the...
Oh, you've got a few minutes, so whoever's going to...
We'll make sure, I don't know what's going on in the kitchen, but we're going to heat up the khichdi and the tea.
Q&A.
Somebody can take it care.
Well, just so we know, okay, we have a few more things, but I was going to play some slides while you're getting through.
No, we're not done.
Oh, no, okay, well, what were you thinking? Okay, well,
He may think he's done. They're not done. Oh, good. Okay, so she gave me a portable mic. Is it on? So, I don't know what made him think he was done. This is your time. And in part of why we love to do this and we learn more is by we allow the people who attend to ask the questions. And we put them, they have to answer those so that our mind is clear. I do want to say that was wonderful, and we need to give them credit for running through centuries of information. My husband and I spent much time in India when my husband was working on his doctorate, and he studied Hinduism. And it took me weeks to learn. So learning so much, hearing so much in one night, I give you much honor. Thank you. So, I know there's one person in here that has questions, and we're gonna make you wait a few minutes, Rabbi. All right? He has great questions. Is there anybody who has a question? Way back there, okay. I can try.
My sister is named Krishna, and I want to know how that fits in with Krishna.
So, did you say your sister is named Krishna?
She's my Hindu sister.
Uh-huh. Yeah, Krishna basically means, yeah, we like to, like, my husband's name is Mayesvara, means one who controls the world. My name is Brajarani, means the queen of a holy place. So we like to call, but behind our names, like he has Das and I have Dasi, meaning servant of God. So we like to use spiritual name, we like to use anything that reminds us about God. We want to constantly bathe our consciousness in remembrance of God. So like we eat food related to God, we chant names related to God, we try to, everything we do, we try to bring God in the center of our lives. So that's why names also have God-like names.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my question was that the deities, they look female, so how do you refer to the deities? Is it male, female, like asexual?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, we had one people come in and says, "Wow, Krishna looks like a lady." He says, "No, actually the lady's trying to imitate Krishna because Krishna's beautiful and the ladies like to look beautiful." But we said, God, he can, again, like you say, expand himself. His first expansion, like you see in the middle of Krishna, is Radharani. That's his female or loving, pleasant potency. So we say God is not just male or female. He can be male, he can be female. He can expand into anything. And he expands himself in different forms.
Actually, I just popped in my head while I was doing the presentation. So I know our Hindu religions always come to known as, we worship idols.
Right.
But at the same time, like if you go to a church, there's always a, cross and there's Christ. And if you go to Jainism, they worship Mahavir. Those religions are never referred to as worshiping idol. Whereas Hindu religion always is like known to be worshiping idols. So is there I just popped by.
Right, so you're wondering why that is. Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I don't know what's in people's minds and why they consider, that.
So maybe there are a lot of people who go to church. I just want to understand, like when you guys go there, there's a cross and there's Christ. What does that symbolize for you? If it's not an idol.
Well, there have been questions in the past for Catholics and if they're worshiping idols. And I guess that would be true for Episcopalians now that I think about it, different faiths. But you're right, we don't tend to think of them as an idol. Icons, that's exactly what I was going to say, Mike. They're icons. And learning the difference is important. And I have to tell you, my experience with the Jains and having Hindu friends has helped me overcome the idea that these are idols. So it doesn't frighten me as when I was younger. And it has helped with understanding. And I think, and this is going to be the pitch for interfaith and why it's so important, is that when we spend time with each other and as we eat together, we break down those barriers and we take away the fears and we build understanding. And that's what's really important. So that's my pitch for interfaith. And speaking of, so I'm going to let my good friend, Rabbi Michael Lockberg, put you on the hot seat.
You may have 7 mothers, but I have more questions.
Pass it on to him.
So one of the things that I was trying to clarify or understand better is the difference between deity, God, and idol. So you referred to the statues here as deities.
Yes.
I would say in English, the word deity means God, but I think I'm hearing you say that these are demigods. But are these actual deities? Would you say they are gods?
Yeah.
They are images of God?
Yes, like I said earlier, if you remember, we were saying God expands himself. So we have Krishna on the little off-center here to the right. We have Lord Ramachandra. They're the same personnel. Remember the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. It's the same godly energy, but it's appearing in different forms.
Are these specific statues, would you call them deities? Would you call them images of God? Representations of God?
These are called deities because the difference is like when I said earlier, I gave the example of the dollar note, because these are authorized forms according to our Vedic scriptures. So that's what makes them deities, because they are authorized forms according to our Vedic scriptures. And like, just like the dollar note is authorized by the government, so this is authorized by God. So once they are authorized.
You wouldn't say that these are actually gods. No.
I would like something.
Yeah, we say, oh, it's not different, yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I think what you're trying to say is, so when these statues came here from Jaipur, they were statues, they were idols. Well, we actually had a 3-day ceremony here. Actually, our Panditji actually did it, where we say a lot of mantras. It was a 3-day ceremony to invoke God in these statues. So these are actually, there's a process that goes in, and after that, they become deities.
So actually, that reminds me of the Catholic tradition of transubstantiation.
Yes.
Where the wafer becomes
Yes,
actually
yes,
body.
yes.
So you just tell me when to stop.
Well, let me just add one more thing. I think it's a very important core question we get asked many, many times. So the question is right on. Now, he explained very, very well. I don't know if you caught the essence of it. There is only one God in Hinduism, Supreme Lord, Lord Vishnu. These deities you see, they are gods. They are not idols. Why? In different era, we call them Dwapar Yug, Sat Yug, means they're at different times when the humankind was involved in very evil stuff and the religion was being destroyed, people were just indulging, and that would have destroyed this planet. Lord Vishnu reincarnated in a human form himself and came to this earth to save mankind. And you see different deities here, that they are basically reincarnation and representation of the same God, so they are gods.
Okay, thank you. The other, I mean, I do have a lot of questions, I won't ask them all. But when you talked about karma, I think in a common understanding of karma, it happens in this world. I thought I heard you saying karma is something where you're rewarded in the next incarnation for deeds and attitudes in this incarnation. So is it both, or is it?
Okay, let me clarify that. So karma is kind of linked to your soul. Okay, so in this material world is where a lot of the stuff goes down. Okay, so what I was referring to is that if you do good karma, and these are some of the slides I did not include because we wouldn't be here for another half hour. The Vedic system is there's 7 higher planetary systems and there's 7 lower planetary systems, but they're all within the material world. And the problem with being in the material world is, as Krishna says, from the highest planet in the material world to the lowest planet are all places of misery, meaning birth, death, disease, old age, problems with the natural disasters, problems with your body, and problems with other living entities. It's not a fun place. So the idea is to get out. But if you do good karma, okay, so you go to a good apartment up in the higher planetary system. You do bad karma, you're going to go down to some ratty, scutty little place.
But that sounds like an incarnation. So it's not like if I do good karma, I might get, a better seat on the bus.
Yeah, no, you will, but the bus is still going to be in the material world.
Right.
So the point is that, like Krishna said, everything in the material world is not a happy place. We don't belong here. We don't belong. Actually, in the Vedic tradition, they say the material world is like a prison house. Krishna doesn't want to create it any more than Sacramento wants to have prison houses all over California, but the bad guys have to be dealt with. Okay? So the idea is that when you develop a really genuine, deep, loving relationship with the Supreme Lord, He's the only one who can step in and take it all away. And that's really what you want to do. And unfortunately, that would take another half hour to explain the whole system, but it was a good observation on your part. But yes, so what it's saying is you go to the higher primary system, at some point, your pious activities will be exhausted, and then you come back here and say, okay, so you can get it right the next time. And the wonderful thing is that, like I said, Krishna's very kind. He'll let you waste as much time as you want, billions of lives. Because he's just simply waiting for us to have that eternal relationship restored. And if you do that, like one of the slides said, he says, all of them as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. If you're genuine and sincere, he'll go 1.5 miles for you. Which makes sense, because that's why we are with other people. If people are very kind to us, we generally are kind to them. If we ignore them, if you walk into the room and you just get ignored, you go like, what am I doing here? But God's around all the time. Most people are ignoring him. But when you start paying attention, you go, oh, you're paying attention. Wow, that's nice. I appreciate that.
I think I have maybe I have two questions. I'll start with one question. So you're saying that through the process of reincarnation, you go through these worlds, these different planetary levels.
You can.
You can, right. But is it constantly a cycle between these planetary levels, or is there something beyond that, or is it just what's
well, the point, this is a returning question that people think reincarnation, oh, you're on the rat wheel forever. No, the point is that when you have purified your senses and lifted your heart, where you only want to have God as your eternal friend, associate, and also it's another half-hour lecture. There's 5 different kinds of principal relationships you can have with God, not just one that He's the Father and we're the child. I mean, in the Vedic tradition, they have Mother Yasoda, where she's having a relationship where God is her child. And she's got to go all these, like a mother. She cares for her child with love, okay? You can also have a relationship of friendship. So the thing is that when you establish, that's where the word dharma came in. When you find your dharma and you get back to what you're originally created for, then, and you restore this relationship, then you will escape the material world. It's not like an endless rat race. But here's the caveat. You always have free will. You always have free will. You can always choose to do this or do that. Anything else?
I have a follow-up question. I'll make it quick. Wouldn't the argument then be that if someone is born into like really miserable conditions as we described, then wouldn't you say that they deserve it?
Yes, ultimately they laid out their own fortune.
Okay.
They laid out their fortune. Because otherwise, I mean, I know we all seen people who somebody's working so hard to try to get it right, to start a business, and they're throwing their life into everything they got, and it fails. And somebody else comes along and, finds out a rubber band, and like, wow, it makes $1 million selling rubber bands. So there's another verse in the Bhagavad Gita that says there's 5 causes to every action. And this is important to realize because we get confused with what's kept going on, okay? Those 5 causes are the person, who we are, the place. If you want to buy an igloo in Florida, it's probably not going to work too well. Okay, the person, the place, the senses. Most of us here, from what I can tell, have working senses. I don't see anybody who's deaf or blind. Okay, so your senses, obviously you're handicapped and you have some difficulties there. Person, the place, the senses, the endeavor. You have to make an endeavor. But then the Gita says, but ultimately, the final factor, you have control over those first 4. You don't have control over the last one. And Krishna says, super soul. I have the final say. So it is not meant to happen. I don't know how many people saw the movie The Secret. They say you just put a thing on the wall and I want to have a good car, man. I want to have a big house. I want to have a fast, wonderful wife. And you just believe it long enough. That's kind of the law of reciprocation. The New Age people are really big on this. But, I dealt with people who tried that. It didn't happen. Why? Because it's not meant to happen. Because Krishna has the final say. God always has the final say.
So what I'm going to conclude with what I've heard say earlier, if you forget about the karma and you learn to serve, it all comes out okay.
Yeah, that's a good summary, Terry.
Hey, that was super interesting. Took a lot of notes. Maybe I have to part this later.
We can carry on. He's a good friend of mine.
Okay, good. You know, one thing that was kind of interesting that caught my attention is there was a slide in there that said that you are not, and then you gave different attributes: American, male, female, so on and so forth.
Right.
Okay. And that I was wanted you to contrast that with the demigods, which are like they seem to be. Now, by the way, they appeared to me, maybe the superheroes took off of that, but it looked like different attributes. Some of them were strong and things like that. So they were definitely differentiated, right?
Yes.
So how would you harmonize those two? I guess this thing where we're not this and we're not that. We don't have these attributes. Like I'm not Caucasian. I'm not whatever, or I'm not American, and put that together with how there was.
Well, the demigods are very clear on what their dharma is. Okay?
The dharma, yeah.
Okay, they're very clear. So Surya is the demigod for the sun. He's got one job: make sure the sun comes up and goes down. It's reliable. He's very clear about that, and he's completely committed to his duty to Krishna, and he has a relationship with him based on that. That's not our situation. Our situation is we're thinking, oh, I guess I must be American. I better go vote, or hey, I'm a woman. I got to go do this. And yeah, you can't ignore these things, but don't misidentify with them. You're talking about your body. One of the things I put on the slide was, you are not your body. You are the pure spirit soul within the body. One of the slides that I didn't show you was a slide where I asked people, what is your definition of enlightenment? That's another big word, no. People are going, oh, he's an enlightened being. Oh, yeah, let's go see. Wow, there's a lot of enlightened people in Ojai. Okay, but what is your definition of enlightenment? So one popular gentleman who's written a lot, and won't mention his name, we don't want to do that, but I was reading one of his books, and he must have gone on for a whole page. Enlightenment is kind of when you know you're part of everything, but then you're not really part of everything, and that kind of life happens, but you can also make life happen, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. And this is what enlightenment is. And believe me, he's a very highly recognized person that people think he knows. He does know what he's talking about to a certain extent. But you want to know what the definition of enlightenment is for a highly realized Hindu? It's very simple. Krishna's God. We have a relationship with him, and we're to serve him. That's an enlightened person. And that's the only real focus in life. That's the only real, ultimately the only real purpose in life.
But when it comes to differentiation, between people in the culture today, men are calling themselves women and so on and so forth, there's things like this going on, right?
I'm not saying ignore all that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying don't get trapped by it. Don't get trapped by it. Don't think that you're Tom, a white man in Ojai. You're not. You're a pure spirit soul. You have an eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord. That's who you are. And by the way, that's who all of us are. So when people say we're all children of God, that's what they're referring to. Okay? And if we actually understand that and function on that level, then all of this stuff that's all going on because of people thinking, oh, you're from that country and I don't like that country. Oh, you're from that race, I don't like that race. Oh, you're a woman, I got jilted by a woman 5 years ago, I don't want to have anything to do with you. You have to get rid of all that stuff to actually see that in that body is an actual spirit soul, a spark of God. There's another thing in Ojai, so many people walk around. When we do our Sunday program on Sunday morning in Ojai, people come up to the book table, and Brajarani has all our books out. You've been to our book table. And they look and they go, I don't need your books. I already know I'm God. He's like, what? I already know I'm God. And it happens more often, it's hard to really believe. And they really believe it. And because there's a tiny spark of truth to that. Yes, you are a tiny part of God, just like a spark out of a fire. But that little spark doesn't have the power of a big bonfire like in Texas where you can see it from the moon. Okay? So, yeah, Krishna's within your heart. And I think that's another verse in the Bhagavad Gita. I'm residing within everyone's heart. So, yes, you're a part of God. That's some other people. I think we got something in the back.
We're gonna close Bhagavad Gita to everyone. All the answers are in Bhagavad Gita. And it's translation also, all
Yes.
languages.
I'll mention that in a second. Okay, we got another question back?
Yeah, when you say, your purpose is to serve God, what does that mean to a Hindu?
It means find your dharma and do it for God. So in other words, dharma, some people are good at counting. Some people are good at, building temples. Some people are good at painting. Some people are good at cooking. We're going to have some good food here in a minute, okay? But somebody might be really good at cooking, but you show them an accounting book and their eyes go, oh, I don't know anything about that. Okay, or you have a mechanic. Some people know mechanic. Computers. There's so many different things that people can be good at. And we have a tendency that, one of the ways it was put to me once is that if you didn't have to worry about any money, you have to worry about going to work every day, what would you do with your life?
So in other words, you would use that, so you use that talent to serve mankind?
Exactly. The word is dovetailing. So whatever that talent is, and actually in the Bible they refer to it, I think Jesus refers to it as many talent, and whatever that talent is, dovetail it. So instead of just going out to the races and fixing cars running around, fix the cars that the temple needs to be able to go and keep the temple functioning. Whatever you have, there's very few exceptions to the rule, and I won't go into those. But there's very few exceptions to the rule. Whatever talent you've been blessed with, which is something that naturally, I put this whole PowerPoint slideshow together. It just comes naturally for me, but I've had people say, I can't do that. Well, okay, you're not expected to do it. But you may be able to do something I can't do. So whatever that talent is, use it for God. That's the perfection of your life. That's the perfection of your gifts.
You have one more, Mike?
But rather than a specific question, I want to tell a little, very short story. When my synagogue in Camarillo invited and hosted the Hindu temple for many years to meet in our synagogue. And actually I got criticized by the more orthodox strains of Judaism because of the presence of deities. When I asked the president, why did you select our temple? The president told me, we looked in the phone book, and there were lots and lots of churches, 70, 80 churches, one synagogue. And said, yours was the only place that called itself a temple. And they wound up there. So I think that's great. And the other thing I just wanted to add, I think as you know, I'm a physicist as well as a rabbi. So what the distinction between science and religion that you referred to, here's the distinction I make, and it's actually a quote from Rabbi Jonathan Sachs. Science takes things apart to see how they work. Religion puts things together to see what they mean.
Good. By the way, I don't know how many people noticed, but I've been running some slides up on the screen here. These are, and I have, these are only like probably, I've got about another 50 slides like this, but I just limited to these.
And I bet you have one graphic where they're all on the same graphic.
He knows me too well. But the point is that what's really amazing is all these journals, again, they all have different dharmas. Some of them are writers, some of them are playwrights, some of them are physicists, some are mathematicians, okay? And what's really interesting is Krishna says, Manasinam Sahasri Sukhasi Jyate Siddhaya. Out of many, many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection. So all of these guys have certainly found some perfection. They're the Oppenheimer. He's like way up there, right? Okay? And then he says, but all of those who achieve perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Okay? But what's interesting is that all of these gentlemen were very deep thinkers in their own traditional dharma. And because they were so deep, they wanted to go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. One of them says something like, ultimately, all wisdom comes from the bank of the Ganges. And I'm trying to give quotes here of some of the most, I think most people know some of these people. Okay? And it's reinforcing it. It's basically, restating that same thing. Anything else?
Are there any questions that you just can't, one more back there.
This lady right in the front here had something. You want to say something?
No, I just said that just hand over Gita to everybody, and Gita is translated in many languages, and you will find the answers you are asking questions to him. And I know he gave very good presentation, he has understanding of Hinduism, but nobody else can explain as well as it's explained in Gita itself.
That's what Christians would say, or a rabbi might say, go to the test and go to the study. I have one more back.
Hi, great presentation, thank you. My question was that in this poster it says that Gita is about 5,000 years old.
That's a short version.
So is it, was it written by one generation or did it evolve over the years?
Okay, just to clarify, actually it says in the Bhagavad Gita, Imam Vivashiteyo Gam Proktavam Maham Avyayam Vivishwan Manave Pahurman in the 4th chapter, Krishna's telling Arjuna, because there's a whole dialogue going on here. But he's saying, I actually spoke this Bhagavad Gita to the sun god Vivishwan, and Vivishwan spoke it to Ikshvaku, and Ikshvaku spoke it to the father of mankind. Okay? If you take the Vedic calendar and work out the math on when he spoke to Ikshvaku, it's 120 million years ago. The Vedas are, it's a little hard for our Western minds to really grasp. There's a chart right next to where Kevin's standing here of what the Vedic concept of what this universe looks like. It's right out of the Vedic literatures, okay? And it's mind-boggling. It's really hard to grasp because we're not used to thinking in terms of billions of years. Well, why not? God's got no, he can take as long as he wants. Okay, it's unlimited.